Hey, this is Lady, and I'm back with video number 2 for today. I just recorded the BookTube newbie tag, and I decided to just go ahead and jump in with another video. This video will be my first book talk, so let's get into this book. Kindred by Octavia Butler. First off, let me start by saying I can't believe I was never introduced to this book. I can't believe that I never discovered this book before now. But it was so good. The book I'm talking about here is Kindred by Octavia Butler. I really enjoyed this book, so I want to do my first book talk on it so y'all know what I thought about the book. So let's start with this. Imagine being a black woman and you faint and you wake up and it's 1815. You don't know how you got there. And you don't know how you're going to get back home, but you realize that you later learn that you're there to help save the life of a slave owner. And you later find out that that slave owner that you are sent back in time to protect, he becomes your great, several time removed great grandfather. Well, that's what happens in this book. That's what happened to the character who she's a 26-year-old writer. Her name is Dana, and she's married to a writer as well. He's a white guy. His name is Kevin. The same as my boo. And the book starts, they're newlyweds. They are at home. They're unpacking their things, and she gets dizzy and she faints. When she faints, she wakes up and it's around 1815, and there's this little boy drowning. She saves the little boy, but then his parents try to, attack her, especially his dad. And during that attack, she faints again, and she wakes up all wet and muddy from being in the water, and her husband is looking at her like she crazy. He's wondering what's going on, what happened. She tells him what happens, and he's like, how did all that happen? And to him, she was only gone for 3 seconds. But to her, it's more like 30 minutes. Well, she ends up fainting again, and she wakes up, and several years have passed in the 1800s. And she is able to come back again. She gets there this time, and she's to save the little, the white boy from burning up in a fire. She ends up being able to come back. And one particular time when this fainting episode happens, she's able to take her husband back with her to the 1800s. Mind you, her husband is a white man. And by the way, their present day, they're living in 1976. When they get back to the 1800s, by this time it's about 1820, I'm guessing, I can't remember. And he pretends to be her slave owner. They end up living together there for months, and then it comes about that she's about to be whooped by a slave master. And as she's about to be whooped, her husband is coming to try to save her, and she faints. She wakes up, and she's back in 1976, but her husband is stuck. He's stuck. So what happens? Does she make it back to save her husband? How does the slave owner become her great grandfather several times removed? And what was her experiences like? Well, you know what? You're going to have to find those answers by reading this book. This was a really good book, and I'm not about that book spoiler life. I prefer people to read a book. I'm not going to tell you all the good details, just to know it was a good book. And what I just told you should be enough to, get you in there, want to read this book. So I have a few points that I want to make and pull out that I got right here that I want to talk about. First of all, I was talking to someone, and she told me that this book was a required reading when she was in high school. And I was like, we didn't read anything this good when I was in high school, and not even college, really. I had an 11th grade teacher that we went over and over the Scarlet Letter for an entire year. So we missed out on a lot of good stuff. And I can't believe, I really hope, that they are bringing stuff back. I don't feel like this is dated. This book was written in 1979, a few years before I was even born. But at the same time, it's so good. It's so good, and it's a lot in here. It's a lot in here. The brief synopsis I gave you doesn't, it's the tip of the iceberg. It gets a little deep, but I feel cheated that this wasn't a required reading when I was in school, but hey, it is what it is. Another thing, the writing in this book. Octavia Butler is a great writer. She's one of the classics, one of the icons when it comes to writing. And her work was so vivid. I was getting anxiety every time she would faint and she would go back to the 1800s. Like, what's going to happen now? What's she going to get into now? What's going to happen? And I think that's very good when it comes to books, that you can, feel that emotion when you are reading a book. And then the fact that this was science fiction. I recently started getting into some science fiction, but time travel. I know one thing. If I ever am able to experience time travel, I don't want to go back to slavery. But I thought that was a good idea. A lot of people talk about how this book was somewhat of a slave narrative, because she go into it of what these lives of these people that Dana met, the lives of her great-great-grandmother who was a slave, who somehow got with this slave owner, and you'll find that out once you read the book. But she got into that, and she tackled it in a way that, first of all, it grabs your attention, and it was fun to read, but it was also touching at the same time. So I would just say this was a good book. So I hope you enjoyed my first book talk. Like I said, this was a very good book. I would give it 5 stars. I hope more people go out and read the classics, enjoy the classics, and just take the time out to go back and explore some things that we may not have read in the past. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon. Bye.